Hola, muy buenas tardes. Estamos muy contentos de estar reunidos el día de hoy en la 11ª sesión del Club de Lecturas del Consulado de México en Tucson. Muy contentos de saludar a las personas que nos siguen también por redes sociales, que pueden ver esta conversación, los que lo hagan en vivo, pero también los que lo hagan posteriormente. Recuerden compartir la conversación con otras personas que pueden estar interesadas en escuchar y conocer más de los libros, de la literatura. Estamos hoy muy honrados de tener con nosotros a Matt Sedillo, no sé si te definirías así, pero un escritor chicano, vamos a escuchar una poesía muy poderosa, poesías muy poderosas, y me interesa mucho comentar que si, corríjanme, Albanora, si estoy mal, pero se conocieron en el marco de la Feria Internacional del Libro de Guadalajara, la FIL de Guadalajara, que es uno de los eventos editoriales más importantes del mundo, en un espacio dedicado específicamente a la literatura migrante. Eh, ya decíamos en la pasada sesión del Club de Lecturas que las personas migran, pero las personas migran junto con sus ideas y que las palabras migran con ellas. Y en ese sentido, la literatura migrante tiene todo el sentido porque es dejar el registro de esas ideas, de quienes se han movido de un lado al otro o de quienes, por ser parte de familias que experimentaron la migración, tienen esta posibilidad de habitar simultáneamente varios mundos, si lo pensamos desde el punto de vista de la cultura. Así que qué maravillosa ocasión que se hayan conocido dentro de este espacio que se creó también para los ganadores del concurso de literatura para diáspora migrante, pero que tenía a personalidades muy importantes de la literatura, como era el caso de Matt, en este caso, quien dirige el Instituto Cultural Mexicano en Los Ángeles. Y quiero simple y sencillamente darles un agradecimiento a Matt por viajar a Tucson para estar con nosotros, para poder leernos su obra, y por supuesto a la doctora Alba Nora Martínez, a quien le daré ahora el uso de la voz para que sean ella quien presente a nuestro fabuloso escritor del día de hoy, Matt Sedillo.
Buenas tardes, ¿se escucha? Buenas tardes, ¿sí? Ok. Bueno, conocí a Matt porque él fue uno de los jueces del concurso que salí premiada y pues ahí fue un placer conocerlo. Y ahora presentarlo, pues también se imaginan el honor. Entonces, es un honor para mí de verdad presentar a Matt Sedillo. It's an honor to present Matt Sedillo. Matt es un poeta chicano, ensayista, dramaturgo, activista. Entre otras de sus actividades, es editor, promotor cultural y director del Centro de los Mexicanos. Matt is a Chicano poet, essayist, activist, and playwright. Among other activities, he is an editor and a cultural promoter. Okay. Matt ha presentado su trabajo poético y ha dictado conferencias en numerosas universidades y foros internacionales, y en las principales universidades y en la Casa de las Américas de Cuba. He has presented his poetic works and has been main speaker at numerous international universities and forums, such as Casa de las Américas en Cuba. El doctor Paul Ortiz lo ha llamado el mejor poeta político de los Estados Unidos. Dr. Paul Ortiz has called him the best political poet of America. Matt nos dice en uno de sus poemas: vean, vengo de una casta de astronautas con ojos en las estrellas, quienes saludan al cielo nocturno con grandes sueños y ojos abiertos. Grandes sueños heredados de sus ancestros que él ha plasmado en sus poemas. Matt tells us in one of his poems, see, I came from a stock of starry-eyed astronauts. We greet the night sky with big dream and wide eyes. Great dreams inherited from his ancestors, and he has captured them in his poems. Sus poemas nos dan voz a los inmigrantes y a todos sus lectores, sin importar su nacionalidad ni sus orígenes. His poems give voice to immigrants and all of his readers, regardless of their nationality or their origins. Su voz es fuerte y de profundas raíces de risas y del mejor de los humores, el que nos duele por la verdad que destapa, aunque nos haga sonreír. His voice is strong, with deep roots of laughter, and the best humor, the one that hurts us because of the truth that uncovers. Also, it makes us smile. La ironía de sus poemas nos descubre nuestra identidad mexicana y bicultural. Denuncia el consumismo, el colonialismo, la injusticia social y nos anima a buscar nuestra identidad en esta sociedad y en el mundo. Los poemas de Matt engloban preocupaciones universales. The irony of his poem reveals our Mexican and bicultural identity, denounces consumerism, colonialism, social injustice, and encourages us to seek our identity in this society and in the world. Matt poems encompass universal concerns. Matt, gracias por tus poemas. Nos dan voz a todos, o todes, como se dice ahora, tus lectores. Y gracias por tu activismo que nos abre los ojos, nos hace soñar más allá de nuestras fronteras personales, como lo hicieron tus mayores. Matt, thanks for your poems, which gave voice to all of us, your readers, and thank you for your activism that opens our eyes and make us dream beyond our personal boundaries, the way your elders dreamed. Gracias. Los dejo con Matt Sedillo y les doy las gracias, pero antes de esto también quiero decirles que Matt no solamente está publicado en inglés, también ha sido publicado en México en sus poemas en español, en polaco, en italiano y también en España. También en España es un poeta publicado en esta antología de poetas muy importantes. So he has been published in Spain, in Poland, Italy, Poland, and of course in Mexico.
Thank you. We will leave you alone. So you're
Gracias a Rafael y gracias a Alba. Es un gran honor, es un gran placer. Yo soy Matt Sedillo, yo soy un poeta, yo soy un chicano. Como mi editorial, El Martillo Press, como mi nombre, Matt Sedillo. Yo soy in Spanglish, so so I'm going to do the rest of the presentation in English because yo entiendo español, pero cuando yo hablar hay muchos problemas. So I don't want to subject everyone to that. So today I've been asked to read the poems Mowing Leaves of Grass and the poems Pilgrim and to discuss them and the content of the poems, which I think is very appropriate here for Tucson because these poems are actually both make large reference to the book ban that happened here many years ago, or not so many years ago actually, but that was very instrumental in shaping my political consciousness around the Chicano struggle and around the Mexican struggle and around just how much they really don't want us to understand who we are and understand the origin of some of the negative conditions that we find ourselves in. They want us to think it's just fixed, it's found, it's natural, it's just the way it is. But if we actually understand the history, we can see where these things came from, and when understanding that, we can figure out ways to fight it. And so that's kind of why I'm very honored to be reading these two poems here. So this first poem is called "Mowing Leaves the Grass," and the reason I wrote "Mowing Leaves the Grass" and it's the name of the book is because Walt Whitman is a hallowed and revered poet here in the United States. It's probably the most revered poet of the United States. And he was an excellent writer. He was very creative. He revolutionized the way poetry was written, not here just in the United States, but all over the world. He was also very racist, and he was a big proponent of the Mexican-American War. And he wrote, as a journalist, what is miserable, inefficient Mexico to do with people in the New World with the noble race. He was writing this to propel the Mexican-American War, to advocate for the Mexican-American War. In the collection Leaves of Grass, he actually has a poem where he says, "California, I will teach you this robust American love." This poem was written in the 1850s. What was happening in the 1850s in California? We're talking about a period of time of the gold rush, talking about a period of time of the Greaser Act. We're talking about a period of time of the Foreign Miners Tax. We're talking about a period of time of the Indian Protection Act, which was really one of the first statewide vagrancy laws. This is a horrible time for our people, for Native people living in the state of California. So we must question what is meant by robust American love. And so that is why the book was titled Mowing Leaves of Grass. I envisioned this particular poem. I wanted to write a poem where Corky Gonzalez was the hero and Walt Whitman was the villain. And this is kind of what ended up coming out. But it was very deeply influenced by the struggles here in the city of Tucson. We're joined today actually by Nolan Cabrera, who's one of the great fighters for ethnic studies here in Arizona, and one of my personal heroes. I'm very honored. And my good friend, I'm honored to hear as well. Here's the poem. I am the as yet written vengeance of Valor Valdez, the best laid plans of Modesta, the reckoning of Santa Cruz, San Isidro, Bisbee, Chandler, Porvenir, the blood, sweat, and tears of all that I refuse to forget. I am that unpaid debt. No sidekick, no subplot, no mascot, no ethnic study. The universe I embody. The ground above me, the sky beneath my feet. Watching las calles y las estrellas through circular calendars, sleep dealing, si quiero si vera, past the past, the future, in the present, in la quech, all at once, the moment I am you, you are me, and we are two clenched fists that still lit fire, sacred kept, the final breath called last fighting Aztec, laughing in the face of death, the blade of El Pachuco guarding the temple steps, the strength of memory, the promise of tomorrow, yo soy Chicano, Chicano soy, y a donde me lleves, el Chicano voy, they want you to think it's important. Critical to your rehabilitation for the way in which you enter this world. Read Thomas Jefferson and also get pregnant. Standards and practices. Curriculum and instruction. You are the product of a public education. You do not erupt. You get cuffed. Face first to pavement like your father, your grandfather, your mother, your nina, your tío. So you learn your lessons. It's not personal. It's all you people. So don't get mad. Don't be hurt. Don't make this political. This is economic. Objective. The law of self-interest, if we let you in, will become the canon, the classics, Alexander, Napoleon, who will shelve the wit and wisdom of Ben Franklin, Shelley, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Walt Whitman from the Palmanic starting was miserable, inefficient Mexico to the grand mission of people in the New World, the noble race. You fought. You lost. You don't get to define this. This isn't racism. It's providence, progress, and God willing, you filthy mongrels, it is just the way it is. Look at you. I don't see color. I see labor. I see law and order, cops and robbers, guards and convicts, institutions of corrections, schools that look like prisons, cage departments. The cost of living, the cost of being brown is high as wage theft and the rent. Forget your savage tongue. Old teachers robust American love. Speaking fool, you speaks freedom of speech. So you don't take a joke and speak to authority. I'll show you who you are in a book. You'll believe it because I said it. Now you read it. And who you question the canon, the classics, Lowry, Kerouac. Walk out on the great white brilliance of Wilson, Garfield, Roosevelt, Lincoln. Now listen to support in the universe. Is a muralist. The cosmos. Our self-portrait. Sara Curandera. Aranzante. A poet laureate, a stylist, a mechanic, the barrio dandy cruising the rings of Saturn to the travel tips of Torres, Carrasco, tearing the curtain on Union Station, Joaquin, returning triumphant, marching through halls of Tucson, mowing down leaves of grass. Forget what women. This is our LeBeau dedication to Frida, Selena, Catiflas, Luis Rodriguez, Valdez, Ruana, Sandra, Anza, Dua, the mighty Quinn, to all that we are and all that we've been through lifetimes and timelines, galaxies and dimensions of pain, pride, and resistance. And Gothic are the solar showers and the days of living music when the people of the sun were dancing to the tune of Valenzuela. La Luna was a calavera as the ancestors welcomed the future through circular accounts where I am you, you are me, sitting at a desk, looking at the stars, searching for the end to a poem that never began, that always was, and forever shall be. Gracias, gracias. So the next poem is Pilgrim. And this poem Pilgrim is similarly influenced by the book ban that happened here. In this poem, it begins actually talking about two books. One is Where the Red Fern Grows, and the other book is Secret Garden. And these are fine books. These are good books. But as a child, I was instructed to read The Secret Garden, Where Red Fern Grows. This is how to understand coming of age, right? Where the Red Fern Grows is a book about children growing up in the Ozarks. Secret Garden is about children growing up in England. Um, I contrast that with the books Always Running, The Devil's Highway, Occupied America, and The House on Mango Street. All of these books were banned in Tucson. So I have this. It begins with talking about an educational process, and the educational process is like I am told to identify with things that have nothing to do with me, and I am told that I am forbidden, I am banned from taking in an education that will be more culturally relevant to myself. So this causes a state of confusion. In the next section of the poem, it talks about kind of my life story, the different things, growing up in East LA, growing up in the East Side of Los Angeles. The next part, it talks about actually going to high school and having an abusive interaction with a principal. So I'm being oppressed. I'm being put down. I'm being dehumanized. I'm literally called this. And then at the end of the poem, it ends with me with a flurry of history, with a flurry of facts, the flurry of information. And what that is me as an adult, having learned ethnic studies, having learned my history, not ethnic studies, having learned my history, having learned about why I was in these conditions I was, learning why I was being attacked by this principal, learning about why I found my whole community demonized. I grew up in El Sereno, which is kind of northeast LA, and when I was a child, I would walk across, into this kind of dirt lot, and they put a green tarp up, and there would be like fruiteria on the weekends, and all the abuelitas would go and shop, and then when I got a little older, developers came in and they started putting up, the kind of like a mini mart type thing. And when that happened, a brick wall went up. We could no longer walk across anymore. And then after that, when we started climbing over the wall, barbed wire went over that wall. And I'm like 10 years old. I'm 10 years old. And so what used to be a dirt lot begins to look like a prison. We committed no crime. And so that's kind of my introduction to oh, these are the conditions I live in America. And not understanding those things because our history is not readily made available to us. We are the least covered demographic of any group in this country, given our numbers. We represent anywhere between, if we're talking just about Chicanos, Mexican Americans, or people of Mexican descent, we're talking about maybe 12%, maybe the population, 12% population. And if we're talking about, the broader, gente, all of us, then we're talking about almost 20% of the population. Yet we make up about 2% children's books. We make about 4% people see on television. We make up like only 2% of the professoriate. We make up such tiny numbers in any way a country would explain itself to itself. So we don't have any explanations for our conditions. We just know that we're experiencing it, and we don't know why. And this poem is about the power in learning that. This poem is about the power of knowledge. There's a lot of references in here. There's a lot of references, and it ends with a great. It ends with a reference to the great painter Yolanda Lopez. This she had this great print where it said, who you calling immigrant? No, who you calling legal alien, pilgrim, right? And so that's where that came from. That's how this is the reference. It's chock full of references. Some people do not know that, so I don't want people to think I'm stealing from it. This is actually it's intentional. I didn't write that. I mean, I borrowed it. I placed it. Curated it. Yeah. So, see, some are born in summer homes and palatial groves where pain was only to unfold from the pages of secret gardens where the red fern grows, but not I. See, I come from the stock of starry-eyed astronauts who greet the night sky with big dreams and wide eyes, always running down the Devil's Highway through occupied America, all the way back to us on Mango Street, and all the books you don't want us to read. Raised on a handball off the back wall of a panaderia born east the river, post Mendez versus Westminster, one generation with red lines, and diplomas that were signed with those dreams. And that skin need not apply. See, I come from struggle. And if my story offends you, it's only because you made the mistake of seeking your reflection in my self-portrait. See this. Well, it's not be about you. Because some are born in the common core, whose elected faces grace the pages of doctrines discovered and age to be explored. World hardships crashed against new shores, New England, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. For others, pushed off Turtle Island. Aslan, do not call this brown-skinned immigrant. Child of the sun, son of the conquest, Mexicano blood, running through the veins of the east side of Los Angeles. Do not tell him in what native tongue his song would best be sung. Do not tell me who I am, because I was raised just like you, miseducated in some of those very same schools, of lessons and legends of honest Indians and Christian pilgrims and a nation of immigrants, all united in freedom. This until they pulled aside my white friend, pointed directly at me and said, Scott, I judge you by the company you keep, and you spend your time with this. And that same old story is 1846. The adventure of Uncle Sam, the stick-up man, he wetback. Show me your papers, now give me your labor, the melting pot. It's never made for the hands that clean it. The American dream has always come at the expense of those who tucked it in. You don't know that. So you don't teach it. Could write you a book, but you won't read it. See, what's about you? At 1492, and the Treaty of Waterloo, and California missions and Arizona schools, these racists that try to erase us as their kids in cities that bear our names. You can learn some today from Ferdinand to Minuteman, from Arpaio to Alamo, from Popol Vuh to Soaquin to the Indian that lives in me from 1843 trying to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Canadian minds, they don't strike the Bandeala, Zapata, Joaquin Mureta, las Adelitas, Brown Baresi, Zapatistas, Nixon, through Napoleon, from Beckenpaw to Houston, from Lone Star Republic to Christopher Columbus, all the way down to Donald Trump. We didn't cross the borders. The borders crossed us. Who you calling immigrants? Pilgrim. And so those are those two poems. If we have time, can I share one more? I would like to share another poem and tell you a little bit before I do it. This poem is from the upcoming collection called Mexican Style. And so, my first book was Mowing Leaves of Grass. My second was Sitting on the Second Floor. And Mowing Leaves of Grass is very much an ethics studies book, and it's taught in many ethics studies courses. Sitting on the Second Floor is a little more of a sociological book, much more about how cities are built against people that live inside them. And LA being the case study, so obviously I'm from LA. It takes its title from the Bonaventure, where they actually have bridges that cross buildings, so someone could come into town and never touch the sidewalk, and have a complete experience in the city. So it's this really wild thing. To me, it was this great metaphor for the way cities are set up and the illusions of being a worker but having aspirations within the capitalist system. And so, Science Flores, it's a book of extreme wealth. It's a book of extreme poverty. But it's also a book of like illusions in the middle. So that's what that one is. Mexican Style is a return to doing more Chicano stuff, but it's more about Chicano identity than Mowing Leaves of Grass was. Mowing Leaves of Grass was definitely about combating a Eurocentric view of literature, about combating those things. It was about creating a space and creating attention so that we could create our own cosmology, our own understanding of stars. I mean, I would tell people, when I would go to speak at universities, especially when I would have classrooms full of younger students, that, Walt Whitman was very talented, but he would look down upon you, and it's unhealthy for us to look up to people who would spit down upon us. I'm very talented. Look up to me, right? But not just me. I mean, all of us. I mean, there's so much talent. We're a talent-rich community, and we should have our own heroes, and we should have our own role models. And that was the point of Mowing These Grass. Mexican style is much more, it's called Mexican style, but it's really more about Chicano identity. It's really about this striving to connect to something that's been ruptured, and for many ruptures. And it's really, it has a poem about two best friends who grow up in Southeast LA, and they look to Maria Felix, and they dream of the golden age of cinema, and they go to Mexico to find her grave, and it's just trying to reconnect to a past they never really had. Another one has a guy who's he's learning Nahuatl so he can like be a tagger and put Nahuatl words on trains, and so he lives in a small town that he's never going to escape, and he's not going to see the world, but his art will. You know, it has a family who with deep pride in an ancestor who fought the Mexican Revolution, and they're celebrating Dios Muertos, but her brother's died. He's been killed by the police, and so she has a vision of the city filling with Mexican ghosts, and she sees her brother alongside Zapata. And the book is filled with poems like that. So it's filled with the striving to reconnect to something that's been lost. But there's beauty in that striving. There's beauty even in the disconnection, and there's dignity in it as well. And that's what Mexican style is about. And this poem is called Ay Chicano, and this poem really is my take on trying to write I Am Joaquin. Corky Gonzalez's great poem, but like in a slam, in a slam length poem, in like a 2-minute poem. And so in the beginning, it talks about, it's kind of a meta poem, talks about like a writer doing something. And in the middle, it actually goes through the history of Chicanos very quickly. And at the end, it's a celebration of many notable Chicanos, including that guy over there. So here we go. Chicano poet sits at a desk and attempts to pen an anthem, a classic, a grand sweeping epic of economics, demographics, the fear of a brown nation on a bronze continent, the motive engine at the beating heart of the Mexican question, the Chicano condition now somehow lost in a land of confusion, American neurosis, and Hispanic serving institution. Chicano poet sits at a desk and attempts to dive into ink, into parchment, an open letter, an honest ledger of wins and losses, martyrs and marches, the mothers of East Los Angeles, crusades for justice, justice for janitors, the Justice 8, Los Siete de la Raza, the Boulder 6, the Vasquez Rocks, the Silver Dollar. Chicano poet sits at a desk and attempts. Ranchero, Vaquero, Bandito, Coro Blanco, Bracero, Pachuco, Brown Beret, Inmate, Cholo, Vato, Loco, Pocho, No Sabo, Kid, son and heir to all I've seen, but been taught to forget the crimes they commit, then omit from the text how they changed the law when they stole the land, how they taught our kids they held no claim, took too much space, how to change their names, they come a long way to nowhere. I saw a Chicano poet sit at a desk and attempt a hope, a dream, a prayer. May I spend my days and nights scouring the archives of a lost tribe that stitched together a thread of history and culture they could find and called it home. May I carry the movement in my heart, wear my heart on my sleeve, and enshrine our heroes in these poems. A Corona, Acuna, the Anuka, Caesar, Dolores, Gomez, Quinones, The Plan, de Santa Barbara, San Diego, Catalina, Crystal City, La Tierra, Amaria, Aterrina, Alorista, LRU, UDB, CSO, ATM, a rifle, and a press, a pen, and a sword. It's like Flores, Daniel Gangi, Flores, Magoni. It's like 500 years, then 500 more. Abatita, Cortina, Jovita, Modesta, Morena, Barrera, Cabrera, Ayala, Carrasco, Cardona, Munoz, Muniz, Ruiz, La Raza, La Crónica, Regeneración, It's Luche, Asigue, Asintli, Rodriguez. I return to the corn, I Corky, I Joaquin, and I look look the same, and I feel the same, and I have survived centuries of genocide and war. Racist politicians, right-wing militias, pseudo-intellectual academics calling a good name into question a movimiento estudiantil, a Chicano, de Aslan, and I shall endure. So, ¿es todo? Oh. ¿Qué más? Another one? Okay. Okay. Let me think. On spot. Okay, so this is one I did in Mexico. So this, yeah, como Matt Sedillo, como El Martillo Press. Este poema es en Spanglish también. There you go. Iron cast, hand press the heat, pinch salt, a cup of water, masa, the maíz, the steel, the bridle, the cactus, the eagle, the meadows, volcanoes, the stone, on the road, deaths to the roll, the children, the sun, the people, the corn. We didn't ask to be born Mexican. We just got lucky. This is the story of what has survived, what has endured. Centuries of rights and doctrine, discovery and conquest, the land and Cortez, suns that set and left us in complete darkness. Junipero, Pizarro, Columbus, other cannibals, the story began long before we met. But you don't know that about anything. I mean, you said it first. You said it best. America the beautiful. America the exceptional. Pilgrim's pride, gain divine. Providence, the promised land, sweet land, liberty, opportunity, the free land, and rush guns up, go west, young manifest destiny. Broken treaty, empty promise. The Rio Grande is not Ellis Island. Every part, your nation, immigrants will always be dirty Mexican, good dead Indian. This is the story of recovery and restoration, prophecy and legend, eagle and condor, the flight of the butterfly, the return of the jaguar. Los Aztecas del Norte, a peer-reviewed socioeconomic study on how black by black, lot by lot, reinforcement showed up, locked and loaded con sada, lengua al pastor, caniza, cabeza, chicharrón, cebolla, limón, salsa y chile rojo, y viene más caliente. You didn't ask to be born when the Mexicans took back over. You just got lucky. Taco trucks every corner. Okay, right.
Well, it's a great experience and a big opportunity to listen to Matt telling his own poetry is, for me, is very emotional. Thank you, Matt. Thank you again. Okay, now we are going to open this time for questions. Vamos a abrir esta conversación con Matt para sus preguntas o sus comentarios. Por favor. Sí, le van a pasar un micrófono. ¿Se puede presentar su nombre, por favor?
Sí, soy Filemón Zamora.
Gracias, señor Zamora.
Sí, ya me impresionaron tus poemas porque en ellos recoges el legado del movimiento chicano, ¿verdad? Que fue un movimiento también de redescubrimiento de la historia de México, ¿no? Y también de fusionar la historia de México con su propia historia, con sus propios héroes. Y se me hace muy valioso lo que haces, porque mucha gente de descendencia mexicoamericana no conoce esa historia o no tiene esos héroes, no saben quién es Rodolfo Porqui González, por ejemplo, ¿verdad? Así que, y sobre todo tu experiencia chicana se ve muy bien aquí, ¿verdad? Y eso, bueno, yo lo admiro mucho. Y simpatizo con la causa chicana también. Así que, para acabar la pregunta, ¿cómo consideras el movimiento chicano? ¿De qué forma te ha ayudado a ti como poeta?
Lo siento, en inglés. So, but no. The way what got me really, so when I started doing poetry, I was never, I was always proud to be Mexican. I was always proud to be Chicano. But most of my stuff when I started off was really just about general working class stuff. It wasn't until the Trump years that I really doubled down and became, super Mexicano, el luchador, because so many of the people I knew who were not Mexican or were not Chicano or didn't come, who were generally speaking, fighting social injustice. When Trump says Mexico's saying drug dealers and rapists, and I'm like, that's wrong, and anyone who supports that's a fascist. They were like, well, we have to understand the Midwest, the Rust Belt, and this. Like, you're fascists, and that was kind of my big rupture. That was how I ended up, kind of moving away from that, and I became very immersed in the Chicano movement. I already knew a lot of things, but I really immersed myself more. I learned more history. I knew who Corky Gonzalez was, but I didn't know like Petita Martinez and all this other stuff. I'm just rattling off. I didn't know all that. I mean, I learned. I dove into it, and that's what really did. It was really what radicalized me. Was really, like before, obviously a lot of things happened. I mean, like growing up, a lot of things happened that affected me negatively. And I was a kid during Prop 187. I remember that very vividly. But in my adult life, it was really the Trump years that really just like, holy shit! Like there's no ceiling. It's just this can keep going further and further and further. And this guy is talking about bringing out back Operation Wetback. My grandfather was deported during the Mexican Repatriation Act, even though he was born in Denver. And that's part of my family history. And so, hearing someone who's running for president and who later won talk about bringing back these programs that will deport everybody, was terrifying. And to see the people that I knew who were supposed to be leftist or who were supposed to be fighting the good fight be sympathetic towards people who like that message made me really double down on a lot of the movimiento. That's really why I took the turn that I did. So that's how. I mean, it was, and it spoke to my life experience much more than this generalized, kind of raceless, lack of, like humanoid, like no gender, no this, no that, just proletariat. They were all just working clogs, and that's all there is, right? So, this actual, this spoke to my lived experience much more, and it also spoke to just what made sense more, and also spoke to what that. So that's how I ended up going to Chicago movement. I've never abandoned the idea though that the workers must seize the means of production. That it's not they're not in contradiction. I'm just not gonna put up with racists.
Yeah, you mentioned about the ethnic studies, the outlawing of Mexican American studies, and talk a little bit about what was happening here in Arizona.
Hmm?
I guess it was in 2010 that they outlawed Mexican American studies. And could you talk a little bit about how that is now, as you know, this guy Tom Horn is back in power and
Yeah.
trying to do it again. So could you talk a little bit about that and how that's affected the work?
Yeah, well, again, so like I said the Trump years, but I mean that also was a huge effect on me because that was actually going on simultaneously with SB 1070. So I mean that was those twin horrible things that were happening in the state definitely had a huge effect on me and a huge effect on the way I wrote. And again, but a lot of that information didn't really make its way. It stuck with me, but it really came out in Mowing Leaves of Grass. So when I started writing about Trump, I started writing about the book ban, I mean that Prop 27, all the whole like long history, and the brutality of Joe Arpaio. I mean, so there's a lot of Arizona stuff that like even though I didn't live in Arizona, I mean, just the fact that this was happening to my people was just an outrage. And so yeah, I mean, as far as Horn, I get them all confused. Was he the one with that like a racist account? Or was that Hoopenthal? That was Hoopenthal. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure Horn. Oh yeah, Horn's racist too. Yeah. But like but like I get them confused. But like but yeah, no, it's that's terrible. That's terrible. I know that in many ways Arizona seems to be moving potentially away from some of that, and then but also there's also backlash. So I mean, I don't know. I remember Juan Gonzalez talking about a whole, brown belt that's developing in Arizona when Arizona went blue, and you could actually see in Orange County. Orange County's gone blue a few times now, and that's really solely due to demographic shift, right? It's really, people like to say that California went blue. California is a state that voted for Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon twice, right? And so like California went blue solely because of demographic shift. They try to make it out to be like this, the California kid, West Coast liberal. That is not why California is blue. If only, if you know, anyways. But that, so the same process might happen in Arizona. I hope. I mean, I hope more of us here and our population growth can make the state a little more decent a place. So.
Gracias por tu poesía.
Gracias.
Muy poderoso. Y es la primera vez que te escucho y que quiero leer tu poesía, pero siento que es tan poderosa la manera en que la presentas que, que no va a tener el mismo efecto a veces leyéndola nada más. When you say your poetry, it's like another dimension. So something that I wanted to ask is about you say in the previous one that you said the one before the last one. You say that sometimes you present this poem to young people. So I would like to know what is the effect on them and what are the comments, and I would like to know that because I think that that's I mean, if your poetry moves the way that it does today to young people, I don't know how.
So, well, the answer is different. I mean, like at like San Jose City College, goes really well. You know, I'd go to like DePaul Chicano Studies where they want to destroy it, and it goes really badly. You know, like I'm picking on DePaul. I don't know how to do that, if I go to the more the cost of tuition, the more chances it's gonna go bad. You know, but like in the community college, it's always goes really well. They're always very empowered, or they say they're empowered. I don't want to say that I'm empowering them. I'm just trying to trying to rev them up. I'm trying to make them feel strong, that they can fight, I'm trying to do that. I mean, people have to empower themselves. You can't really empower somebody. They empower themselves. The fight has to be in them. What I can do is ignite it. I can remind them, hey, we got to fight. And if it's in them, and they're gonna fight. So that's kind of that's my experience. My experience has been, and I shouldn't say. When I went to Berkeley, the kids loved it, and so. But that was kind of like a night class on scholarship. So it's really honestly, it really is like the more closer it is to like a community college, the better it goes. The more closer it is to like an Ivy League type place or a very expensive university, the more pushback I get, the more word salady responses I get, the more just kind of just bizarre statements. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, though, I don't want to be negative. For the most part, the kids love it, and I tell them all the time, the best political poet in America, Paul Ortiz actually said I was the poet laureate of struggle. Greg Palast said I was the best political poet in America, but when they said best political poet in America, I tell them at the end, like, I'm the best political poet in America, not the best Hispanic, the best Chicano, the best Mexican American, the best, and I'm proud as hell to be Mexican. And I'm proud as hell to be Chicano. And I owe it to all of you in a country that's constantly questioning our intelligence and our ability to do anything to be the very best I can. Now look around you. You owe it to each other. You owe it to your family. You owe it to your ancestors. Man, forget all that. You owe it to me to go out there and be the best goddamn person you can be. And so that's how and they're like, so that's usually how it goes. Gracias.
Le quería preguntar cómo se siente cuando escucha al presidente de México en las mañaneras, cuando alguien hace algo indebido o no está haciendo algo como él lo quiere. Dice, ya estás haciendo tus chicanadas. Y yo me impacto. ¿Cómo puede decir chicanadas? Esas planes, no sé, que somos mexicanos. quiere nuestras remesas, nuestro dinero. Entonces, ¿por qué no respeta la palabra chicano? ¿Cómo te sientes al respecto?
Hay mucha gente en México. I'm hello. Oh man,
No, yo
it's
sé.
microphones don't respect Chicanos. Hay mucha gente en México you know, que gusta los chicanos, la poesía. Y hay mucha gente que no. And I try to work with the ones that do. I try to work with people that want me there. You know, I met Alba because I was actually invited by the Instituto de los Mexicanos en el Exterior to be part of the project there, and so that was a great honor. But there were some other people that thought I shouldn't, that come from different organizations, and that still exists. This idea that like the Chicanos don't have culture, they don't know who they are, they're lost, they're fake Mexicans, they're whatever, right? So that those ideas still exist. But it's not like Mexican Americans don't have like a ton of negative concepts about Mexico. I don't want to play like like this is a one sided thing. Like, oh my God, why are they doing this to us? So like that there are reasons, right? There are reasons. But there are many Mexicans who have welcomed me in to their institutions and to literally their homes. I mean, every year I run an encuentro with our partners down in Mexico. I'm part of the Mexican Cultural Institute of Los Angeles, along with Jose Antonio Aguirre and Margarita Medina. And every year we have an encuentro with our partners, Chicanx y Fronteras, in Mexico City, and they bring us down. I take down poets. I've taken Luis Rodriguez, Norma Cantu, some very notable people have joined us in that exchange. And so there are many wonderful, beautiful exchanges that are happening. I think a lot more are happening now because, unfortunately, because of so much mass deportation. So many of these young people got deported in the last 20 years, and they have a very Chicano identity. Even they were like, let's say, born in like Guadalajara, or born in Tijuana, or born in Rosarito, wherever they get relocated back down there, and they bring with them the culture that they developed up here. And so, in many ways, Mexico is becoming more Chicano. I mean, especially Tijuana. If you ever go to Tijuana, it's a very Chicano city. It's very like East LA. Maybe about 60% of the billboards are in Spanish and 40% are I mean, 60% in English and about 40% in Spanish. You go to Tijuana, about 40% of the billboards are in English and 60%. It's a very similar city. So I think that there's a lot of things go back and forth.
Um, Good evening. Thank you so much again. Oh, I think everybody can hear me. Is that all right?
Right.
Yeah. Just curious about, and you kind of started to touch on it in your last answer. And so, my question is, as we think about Chicanismo and like the Chicano movement, Chicanx, all of this evolution, right? That comes from resistance work, that comes from activism, that comes from queer resistance and indigeneity, and all of the culmination of that work. And so as we're looking now at the socio-political environments that our communities are still facing, when we're looking at police brutality and all of these things, what do you think is the next, the lack of a better word, like what is the next iteration of Chicanismo will look like in contemporary context? And you're talking a lot about SB 1070, right? And we talking here, like a lot of us here through Tom Horn, and he's still here, and all the things, and some of these things start to recycle themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your thoughts on like where does Chicanismo go from here? Like where does it sit within the current movement?
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of people are very protective of terms, and I'm really more protective of concepts, right? So if language changes, that's fine. But like to understand that we come from a population that has this line of struggle, that this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, right? So when someone says like when a figure like Donald Trump appears, the proper timeline to put that in is SB 1070, Prop 187, East LA walkouts, to put it within the context that it belongs, and not just generalize. Well, America's always been a nation of immigrants, and when the Irish came in, just start changing the subject, right? Which is what most people in U.S. society do. So what do I see Chicanismo? I see the fact that I see that Donald Trump rose on the basis of very Arizonan type politics. We need to protect our borders. We need to shut this down. Mexicans are coming. Mexicans are criminals. This is where, he attacked numerous populations. But the thing he came back to the most was the border. The thing he came back to the most was Mexico is coming. Mexicans are coming. They're overrunning our country. They're invading us. Those politics took shape, found root and found home in places that were not part of the land that was once Mexico. These are typically things that sell well in Arizona, Texas, parts of California, or even parts of New Mexico. Those politics all of a sudden were working well in Kentucky. They were working well in Michigan. They were working well all over the country. Why? Because of the demographic shift. Because by 2040 the numbers are going to flip, right? And so those politics aren't going anywhere. And with or without Donald Trump, whether he, because we all die. So, eventually, he's whatever. Those politics aren't going to go anywhere. Whatever happens with him, whether they throw him in jail, whether he wins again, or whether he becomes a dictator, whatever happens with him, those politics aren't going to go anywhere. So it behooves everyone to learn the history of the Mexican border and the people of the Mexican border and the peoples that came out of that, the people that came out of the experience, the borders crossed them. My personal family is, not that that's really, that doesn't define, my personal experience doesn't define, like, the masses of millions of people, the destiny of millions of people. But, on one side of the family, it's New Mexico, and it never was not New Mexico, right? One family is totally tied to New Mexico, another side to Guadalajara, right? And so, but there are many stories like that, right? There are many people. So to learn that history and to know the people that in this country are coded as Mexican or been Mexican or whatever, and the oppression of that, and to see the story that in many ways begins in 1492, but also the story that begins in like 1846, and to see that story and that timeline, to understand that when we're talking about this fascist attack, if that's going to be the center point, if that's going to be the pivot point, it's important for everyone to learn Chicano history. Because if that's going to be the central theme of the new fascist era, fascism is going to affect everybody. So it's not just for us to learn. Everyone has to learn this history to understand what it means when someone comes out and starts demonizing Mexicans. Chicanos as well.
Matt, it was worth coming out on the rain.
Thank you.
You brought me back. You make me want to go home and look for my Porky Gonzalez autograph books because I'm from the 70s. And I remember all the UC systems coming together, including UCLA and people at Berkeley, for affirmative action. We marched all over Los Angeles. And it is so sad to see it being struck down by the Supreme Court judge because we needed those opportunities. Some of us come from occupied people that were here before the United States came. Others have ancestors coming who took all kinds of risks, coming by themselves without knowing anyone, the language, or who they're going to meet or what they were going to do. And I congratulate you for telling the Mexican Americans you owe it to your ancestors to be the best that you can be. Because they always told me all the generations should be better than when we came here. As far as I know, I listened to them and I proceeded to go on to the university, and my children went on to the university, and it just gets better and better. Thank you so much for promoting that optimism, the positivity of yes, sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Tenemos tiempo una pregunta más. ¿Alguien?
When is your new collection coming?
May 5th.
May 5th?
May 5th.
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
If I may do the last question, I just wanna I think to build on one of the questions and one of your answers regarding the new generations when you talk to young people, because I was the amount of references in your work, it requires a lot of information, and I think with all the campaigns and actions to avoid people in this country, in this state, to actually learn about Chicano history, that has a that have a toll. So I can't imagine so many a generation of Mexican Americans actually not knowing a lot of your references and the wonderful references that you present from Chicano history, from Mexico, from the U.S. I can imagine how that it is, but I'm totally sure that. But that's the question: does it ignite curiosity to learn from them? Have you seen that, like a question mark in their faces, like what's this guy talking about? And
Yeah.
I really want to find out, because with the passion that you are reading it,
Yeah.
it certainly
Yeah.
it will ignite my curiosity to
Yeah.
get to learn about it.
Well, I think that for it's starting more now, right? But for very many years, even though I was hailed as the best political poet in America, I'm very underrated. I'm really great. Like I'm really. I mean, this is like historically like really dense. I'm up here, Bisbee, Chandler, Port Veneer. I mean, these are all like mass lynchings and deportations, right? And then like the blood, sweat, and tears of all that refuse to forget. All that refuse to forget is a reference to refusing to forget, which is a project out in Texas. So it is so dense. It's so historically dense. And the reason I did that was because I got involved with the Association of Rasta Educators in Los Angeles, and every time we would go somewhere, they would say that we want to bring in ethnic studies, but we don't want to diminish the rigor. And I'm like, what the, like, rigor? Like, I don't know anybody who is as rigorous as me. Like, like I'll put this up against Poe. I mean, he doesn't have references or allusions. He's just talking about a bird. Like tell me rigor. What the hell? And so, I have a whole mapping system where it's like topic, details, point, act 1, act 2, act 3, a 4-square thing, and I do all my research and I put the details like, all right, how do I flesh this out? How do I flesh this out? I want to get this in there. I'm gonna put it here, put it here, so I move things around. I have a word arc. The word's gonna appear 4 or 5 times. Each time it appears, it changes meaning, which shifts the poem into the next thing. So I think that more and more as I become more notable, people have more interest in actually studying and like looking at what's going on. Yeah. But before I was just like, wow, that guy's exciting, right? And it's like, whoa, like that guy sure did yell some stuff. Wow, I wonder what he was talking about. And it's like, so, but I'm not the type of person to be like, all right, I mean, I was asked to, so I will, but like, if not asked to, I kind of want people to figure it out. But what I really did though is, like in Pilgrim, I listed a lot of things that people are very familiar with, but I also mixed it in with the things that people are not so familiar with, like the Cananea mine. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? I threw Peckinpah in there. Why did he throw the director Sam Peckinpah in there? What does he have against Sam Peckinpah? Why did he put him next to Sam Houston? What does that mean? So like, there's a couple of different things that, because I want people to look into. So if I list a bunch of obscure things all next to each other, and if they're all really obscure and buried, those are like, what is this? This is abstract. If I list everything that's just basic and everybody knows, then it's like, what's the point? So what I like to do is put more to filter things that are obscure, yeah, and then not explain it, not be like, and you might want to read, blah, blah, blah. Check the footnotes, and just to do it like a one fell swoop. So that's kind of my technique to get people to learn more, is to give them something they're familiar with it, and then add a new element that they're not.
Muchas gracias, pero todavía tenemos algo más que hacer. El doctor Bautista y el cónsul Barceló van a entregar unos diplomas a Matt Sedillo.
¿Quieres leer? Sí. ¿Quieres? Yo te lo detengo para que no tengas dificultad.
Leer y escuchar la poesía de Matt. ¿Está bien?
Así son. Aquí estamos en the frame. So we are in the frame.
Sí. Leer y...
You're good. Whatever you want.
Sí. Leer y escuchar la poesía de Matt Sedillo. Leer, no tanto como con la emoción que tú lo haces, pero nos conecta con acontecimientos del presente y del pasado. nos recuerda lo difícil que es para el migrante ser aceptado en una sociedad que él quiere pertenecer. Es tan extraordinario en este contexto el trabajo que hace Matt, que se ha ganado a pulso el título del mejor poeta político en Estados Unidos. Y por tal motivo, la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México y el Consulado de México en Tucson nos congratulamos de entregar estos reconocimientos a una figura tan destacada, tan laureada en el campo de la literatura chicana como lo es Matt Sedillo. Matt Sedillo's work connects us with today's and past happenings. It reminds us of how difficult it is for the migrant to be accepted by the society he knows he wants to belong. His work is so extraordinary that he has earned in his own right the title of the best political poet in the United States. And that is uh, why the National University of Mexico and the Consulate of Mexico in Tucson, that we congratulate ourselves for giving these diplomas to such renowned figure as is Matt Sedillo. So this is from the National University of Mexico. And this is from the consulate.
Yes.
And then you want to.
Yes. This is just. If you allow me to read it, it's the certificate of recognition to Matt Sedillo for his contribution to the Hispanic and Mexican American literature, and particularly for the literature written by people of Mexican origin in the United States. Thank you so much. We're so pleased to have you. So honored, and it's wonderful to get to listen and to get to read from such a wonderful author. Thank you so much, Matt. This is
Yeah. This is a grand honor for me. I'm a little bit at a loss for words. I started doing poetry when I was working retail. I was a retail management. I was working at Steinmart, and I was chasing after open mics. I remember near the end of my time there, I remember it was the day after Thanksgiving. I was getting yelled at, and I pulled out my name badge. I'm like, I'm a human being. I don't have to take this. I quit. And he said, no, you don't. And I was there for another 6 months because I had a car payment and rent. But it put the dream in me that I wanted to pursue a life as an artist. And that was 15 years ago. And I traveled a really, really ragged road to get here. And you know, when I was, you know, I don't have an MFA. I didn't go through any of those traditional channels, and I really just had a dream, and I chased after it, and I worked really hard, not just as a networker, but really hard on the work I actually wrote, and for it to get me here, I just want to say that there are millions of people who work in the backs of restaurants, who work behind cash registers, who push a broom, and they have symphonies in them. And they have masterpieces in them. And the world's a poorer place, but they don't get out. But I thank you all so much for being here today with me in this moment. That means so much in my life. I thank you, Alba. And I thank you, Mexican Consulate Tucson.
And we have fantastic books from the editorial El Martillo. So I think it's a wonderful if we can leave this session also with the fantastic literature that editorial El Martillo has to offer today. Thank you, Matt.